This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas.
Could you lower the music again? Hey there, it's Brian Sebastian, Movie Reviews and More, and I know what's going on with that, with the music in the background. I knew that was going to happen. So this is, every show is special. So Rachel, this is show number 51. Next week will be this is show number 50. Next week's 51, and then the next one is 52 out of 52 weeks. And it's going to be really interesting with that. And so, Ish, when you're not talking, put your mic on silent. Then we won't have to hear the background of that stuff and be dinged. Yeah, thanks. Because we'll be dinged for copyright infringements, and I don't want that. I want to talk about drum corps. But here's the thing about this. Been looking forward to this show. This will be the first one that we do, and we have another one coming up at the end of November. And the reason why we have to do this, because without these guys, minus Rachel, see, I get the picture on Rachel because she's the drum corps virgin. So we get to tell her all kinds of horror stories of all what we went through, marching in our beloved drum and bugle corps, all the things that we did from playing drums, snares, bass, being in the horn line like Ish, like Mike, doing all this stuff, and still being fans many, many, many years later of what we're doing, and also learning how to repair instruments, because that's a lost art. That saddens me when you can't take an instrument and find someone to replace it, to fix it. That's not good. There's so few of them, and even last year, one of the short films that I was champion won, called The Last Repair Shop in Los Angeles, won an Oscar. For that, and I was like, this is great. It's got to win. And people loved it because it was so true. But before that, we got to talk about all this stuff. So yes, we are broadcasting live on over 100 outlets as usual around the world. I'm in Atlanta this week. Last week I was in Los Angeles. The week before that I was in Vegas. The week before that I was in Los Angeles. The week before that I was in Illinois. So it never ends. I'm done traveling for the year. But the fun thing about this, it's always about, we're always live, never taped. Sort of like Memories. Remember that commercial? It's almost like that. So, Talk for TV, Talk for Media, K for HD Radio, and streaming on iTunes 247, Worldwide TV Network, and WomenOnTV.tv around the world. So the fun thing about this, we get a chance to talk about the AFI Film Festival. You guys will like this because we played some of the music. John Williams, you know him. He scored Jaws. He came up with that. Almost every drum corps played Jaws. Star Wars. Almost every drum corps played something in Star Wars. He did all of that stuff, and it was great to see. He's 94. He's got cancer. He wasn't there, but it's one of these things where everybody will know his music, whether it's Gilligan Island, things like that. And it was an honor to see him. Steven Spielberg was there. J.J. Abrams, who does Star Trek, he created Lost. He was there. Kathleen Kennedy, she was there. Frank Marshall was there. Diane Warren, who had a film in Nashville, Tennessee, she was there. So it was good to see a lot of the old friends and some new ones too. So let's talk about this. Donnie, you wanted to do this. Ish wanted to do this. It was one of these things where we needed to talk about people who had marched in drum corps and bands and the difference. And, people who marched in the 50s, 60s, and the people who marched later on. It was always about what defined us. And I realized when I talked to people in the drum corps world, I forgot we worked on perfecting shows. The reason why we never taped because I came from the drum corps world, so we're always working on perfecting our show, and that's what I realized. That's why we never have a tape show. We know what it's like to do it live and always have those rehearsals every week and just getting stuff done. So I'm going to start with Donnie. I want you to introduce yourself, Donnie, where you came from, what you're doing, why you're doing what you're doing, of the Wynn Center Toppers. Now, I knew
Okay.
of the Corps. I never got a chance to see them, but you and a few of the other guys here kept these things going. And
Yeah.
talk about what you've done afterwards, too, because it's even more important, bringing the drum corps world into the mainstream profession of what you're doing. Go ahead, Donnie.
Okay. My name is Donnie Holder. I was born in Brooklyn, New York. My first drum corps experience was with this drum corps called the Spearheads from Brooklyn, New York. That was in 1961. And the corps itself lasted about 3 years. We were managed by a person named Bobby Cephas. He was a member of the original Wynn Center Toppers. And in the Wynn Center Toppers, the founder of the Wynn Center Toppers, they had two founders, which Mr. Sidney Austin and Mr. Joe Tucker. Um, Mr. Austin came to instruct the Spearheads at the request of Bobby Cephas, who was a member. When the Spearheads disbanded, most of the people in the corps, about half, decided, well, we wanted to go, and me in particular, to the Wynn Center Toppers because of Mr. Sidney Austin. He was teaching us, and I wanted to go wherever he went. So in 1964, I went to the Wynn Center Toppers. We were competing first, initially a parade corps, and then we became a competing corps. One of the most important things about the drum corps then is they were focused on youth from the community. They You didn't have to know how to play a drum. You didn't have to know how to play a horn, and most of us didn't. But when we went into the Wynn Center Toppers, and they were sponsored by the Police Athletic League at the time. And the Police Athletic League provided us uniforms and horn, and we were taught from scratch. And because none of us really, unless you already had a little bit of experience, we didn't know how to read music at all. We just came up, they showed us the fingering for the particular tunes, and we just picked it up. It was amazing, that we were able to do that. And then Wynn Center Toppers, there was a yearly parade called the Brooklyn Day Parade. It was sponsored by the churches. And I remember when I was much younger, I used to see the Toppers in that parade. And it was something that really, really stuck with me. I mean, they were amazing, And I guess I was maybe about 9 or 10 at the time. And it was just awesome to see them. I mean, that was one of the things that you look forward to in that particular parade. When you see the Toppers come
now,
down.
Donnie, hold that thought on the Toppers. So from that, you got to introduce your other two friends now too, because this brings in everybody else. Because the Toppers were an all-black corps. So
yes,
they get into that. Introduce who the other people your brothers are.
Well, right here you have on the top is Gerald Shephard. I guess he'll explain his, but he was from one of the original corps. That's way before me. Lance Tucker is the son of the Wynn Center Toppers, one of the Wynn Center Toppers founders. And recently, we've been having him come and join us on our Zoom, what have you. He's also helped us with information on the book that we have out. We have a book out that that we're selling now, and the name of the book is the Wynn Center Toppers Precious Memories of an African American German Bugle Corps. That's being sold on Amazon. See, he's holding it up.
Nice.
Yeah, and that's being sold now. We had a little problem with Amazon, but now we got it straightened out. It's back on sale. And
now, Donnie, hold that thought. I'm going to come back to you. We got to get to everybody else. So, Ish, tell everybody who you are, what's going on. This will be your third time coming on Movie Reviews and More part of us. You march with Blue Devils. Talk about how you started.
Well, I started even before then. I started back in 1984. I was 14 years old. I was a baritone saxophone player, and the circus came to town. They did a little presentation on drum corps. Drum corps was only brass, drums, and color guard, the dancers, dancing and saber units. But I played a baritone sax. So I said, how do I do this? So they came in and said, you know what? We're going to offer a free tour, and we'll teach you how to play. I said, well, what do I play? He said, well, you're a kind of small guy. You look like a mellophone player. So they handed me a brand new mellophone, a King mellophone. I was so enchanted with having such a beautiful silver new instrument in my hand. I was the first one to ever touch it. And ever since then, I just fell in love with the activity, the instruments, music, and the fact that they taught me how to really enjoy this activity, because I could play in March and actually tour the country, see Washington, D.C., Niagara Falls, all kinds of places. It really enriched my life. And I ended my career at 1990-91 Concord Blue Devils. Still playing in the alto section, loved it. And taught for 30 years of high school bands locally, down in Miami, here and there, and still involved.
All right. Mickey, let's talk about you because you joined late. So I hope we got your sound and everything like that. Tell us who you are, where you're coming from.
Hey, how you doing, Brian? Thank you for having me on the show. And, talking about drum corps and how I started it is always a fun thing. Especially Rachel, thank you for listening to something like this.
No, it's interesting. I like it.
It's always fun to have people like you who don't have a clue about this, But so I started in upstate New York when I was about 11 or 12 is when I actually started it. But I tried to start a few years before that. I come from a family of musicians. My father started in the Army. He came out of the Army, and his father was actually one of the first Black musicians that started a all-Black jazz band, big bag jazz band in New York City. And so they believed in playing gigs. They believed in, if you're not playing in clubs, you're not playing music. So when the marching band and the drum corps scene came to town, they was like, nah. That's not what you do. You can't make any money doing that. If you want to make any money, you need to be in these clubs playing drum set and playing horns and playing other instruments like that. So my uncle, who was a drummer, he also, did that, but he found the love of drum corps, and he started marching drum corps, and that's what he wanted to do. Well, I wanted to do that. And when I was about 6, 7, 8 years old, I wanted to follow that. And he started marching the drum corps in upstate New York, Rochester, New York, called the Grease Cadets. And the Grease Cadets won championships. And so I told my mother, I want to do that. Well, when she started looking into what that was, and she found out that those people rode on buses, and those people ate peanut butter sandwiches, and those people, showered it whenever they did, every 2, 3, 4 days, and slept in. She was like, no, you're not doing that. No. You're not doing that. So she would let me do it. And they had a little kid drum corps called the Shoreliners. That was all little kids. 6, 7.
We marched against the Shoreliners. I remember them.
Little bitty kids. And I was like, Mom, they had little kid drum corps. She said, no, not for you. So she wouldn't let me do it. So when I got to be about 11 or 12, I stayed the weekend with my grandmother, who was all about drum corps. And she took me down for a weekend. And she said, okay, I'm going to let you try out. But my grandmother, she knew the horn instructor. So she said, okay, I brought my grandson down. You got 1 weekend to get this done and to get him in the drum corps. So she got me in the drum corps and he put me in the horn line. And I was the most unhappy child that you would ever see. And so she's like, what's wrong with you? You're in the drum corps. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want nothing to do with that. She's like, what do you mean? I got you in the drum corps. I said, no, I want to do that over there. And I pointed to the drum line. She's like, well, you're too little. You can't do that. I was like, no, I want to do that. So she walked me over to the drum line. She says, my grandson wants to do that. You got something he can do? And they had a cymbal spot. So my first year, I started in the middle of the summer in June. I played cymbals, and I learned the cymbal spot, and I marched cymbals that rest of the year. And the next year, I learned how to play quads, well, tries then, and I marched tenors, and that's when it all began. And that's when my drum corps career began, and I marched 10 years of drum corps as a member, and then I taught another 15 years after that. And drum corps changed my life, man. I would not be the person I am today without that activity. So
absolutely,
gotta love grandma. Wow.
Exactly. So Mike, let's tell her who you are, and then after Mike, we're going to Dr. Gerard. Go ahead, Mike.
You got it. So Mike, everyone knows me as the horn doctor. I got my start. My band director in high school would put on, whenever there was a substitute, he'd put on DCI tapes, and we didn't know what was going on, right? I just remember, like, every now and then we'd see these DCI tapes. I didn't really understand what it was. We wouldn't really pay attention. Then every now and then it would catch our attention, and then a couple of my friends started getting into it. And he came up to me one day and he said, "You know what, Carrigan, you need to march drum corps." And I thought, all right, sure. So my first experience was with the Crossmen, which was coming out of a good year. That this would have been 98 was my rookie year. And Crossman was coming out of one of the real big Birdland shows or something like that. And I went through the whole winter season with Crossman, and they came to me and they said, "Hey, look, this is my first year. I would have been like 16 years old or whatever." They said, "We think you might have a spot, but we're not sure if you're going to have a spot or you're going to be an alternate. But they need lead mellophones up in Boston." And this was the 1 year that the Crusaders were part of YEA. They were going through some tough times back then at that point, and YEA kind of helped them go out on the road in 98, the one single year. And since I was with Crossman and they had that relationship, they put me up there Memorial Day. And I remember rolling up. My dad drove us up from Southern Maryland, 9-hour drive. And I showed up and they said, "All right, we're going to fit you for a uniform." And I was like, "Oh, wow, that was pretty fast. I don't even know the music yet." They handed me a horn. They sized me up and they said, "Yeah, we need to put you in a uniform for the show tonight." And I'm like, "Whoa, wait a second. What show?" They literally, like, this is the tail end of really, I mean, the Crusaders have a really special place in my heart. But this was the last year that the drum corps had never made finals. So we still have a lot I've got kids in the horn line that remember like what we were talking about earlier, where you didn't know how to play horn. You were taught the buttons and, just they would teach you how to play the horn on a napkin kind of thing. So I was part of the drum corps when there were still kids from the old school Boston that remember those times. And my first show is that night. And we circled up. We were like, "What are we doing?" We sang the corps song, "We Are Giants." And it was just that it was like I was becoming welcome into this family, and the experience with the Crusaders was something I hadn't felt before. And here I am. I played one trill for that show. It was a standstill performance. They just needed bodies. So anyway, that started my drum corps career. I marched that last year. Boston had never made finals. I was part of the drum corps the first year we had ever made finals. Got some really incredible memories for that. I remember walking to finals for the first time with that red uniform, and other drum corps stopped their warm-ups when they saw us walking to the field, and they just stopped and clapped for us. And then in 2000, that was a special year to be a Boston Crusader. That was the red show. So we kind of accelerated from 15th place to 9th place to 5th place. And it's just being part of that momentum and feeling that energy is something that has definitely changed who I am inside. And I owe a lot to the drum corps activity.
So Rachel, we got to introduce yourself because you got a horn next to you. So because you're the drum corps version, which is good. So we get to say and tell you these stories, like I said, which is why I'm the drum corps nut on Instagram, because it goes back to what Donnie was saying of how we started. My mom put me in a drum corps. I wanted to be in one, but I was afraid to ask because I was shy back then. And it was like one of the best things she ever did. 3 things. She put me in a drum corps. She made me go to Europe. She moved us into an all-white town, East Lyme, Connecticut. And so those 3 things define me going back to DCI and drum corps. So Rachel, tell them who you are, where you come from.
Okay, my name is Rachel Roberts. I'm from Houston, Texas, and I have a little morning show called Coffee Talk. And but I grew up around performing bands. My mom, she organized performing group tours all over the world. So I did grow up around, bands and travel with them. We took the Hardin Simmons Cowboy Band. Have y'all ever heard of them? We took them to Nice to perform in Carnival, and then the USC band to the Sydney Olympics, and big tours and trips. And yeah, so my mom loved the band. She when she would hear the drums and that was her thing. She was this little 4'11" woman. And when I was a kid, I wanted to play, I think I wanted to play the flute or something. And she was like, no. And she got me to play this. Now, this is the same one that I had when I was a kid. And it's a hot mess. Mike, if I send this to you, this thing is all bent up, and look, it's missing like one of the things. It doesn't have. But I love it because it's it reminds me of when I was a kid and, how I would try to play. I'm going to send it to you.
I'm your guy. I got you.
And I love y'all's stories. This is so
Dr.
awesome.
Gerard, it goes into what like Rachel was saying, the love of music and stuff like that. Talk about, because we're going back to the past now, because there's that gap, but we all love the same thing and still love the same thing, whether we're repairing, whether we went on into the military, because we have some veterans here, because people don't understand drum corps came from the military world, going back to the Civil War. You see those 3 guys marching with a Band-Aid and the big drum. That was the first start of a drum corps. And that's what led to all of these things like that. Dr. Gerard, go ahead.
You refuse to call me Gerald.
I'm going to call you Gerald.
Okay, that's better. Now, I'm going to go back. I'm the old man in the sea over here. I joined the Wynn Center Toppers in 1956.
Wow.
And this book that Pastor Lance, we in Bedford-Stuyvesant will address people by their titles. This is Pastor Lance Tucker, but he's a pastor. So I call him Pastor Lance. And in our community, we the churches are a part of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And we relish in that with other institutions in the neighborhood. And we were very, very lucky because we were almost got a place to practice when other corps didn't. We were PAL Corps, Police Athletic League.
Yep.
And that building is still almost like a shrine. It's in the book. If anybody wants to buy it, Pastor Lance held it up. It's in the book. This book, this book and our feelings for the Corps really date with Joe Tucker and Mr. Austin and the way they did things. You talk about the service and the Army and that kind of thing. Mr. Austin went in the service and he became enamored with the non-piston bugle. Mm-hmm. He blew roll call, evening call, bedtime call with a non-piston bugle. When he came back, and even though when he was in the service, he really loved to watch the British march. And he was determined that we would be good marchers because we didn't have a lot of equipment where we could wreck a street with just a leg lift and an arm swing And the arm swing he chose for the toppers was this arm swing, like the guards do at Buckingham Palace. And we were known for that. Even when the horn line didn't do so well, the drummer didn't do so well, marching maneuver was always top drawer. These two men put their blood, sweat, and tears to a bunch of kids in a poor neighborhood. And like you say, people came out to see you. There was not one time that we came back from a parade that we didn't get off the bus at least 10 blocks away from the center so we could parade for Bedford Stuyvesant. And people would follow us like the Pied Piper and swing those green doors open to the last man and young lady march single file into the center. So I think these are the things that we cherish. We cherish these two men and their memory and the way, as I said, do things. And out of that, we have the son of one of our instructors who pastors a very, very prominent congregation. We have doctors, we have lawyers, we have teachers. They call me doctor because I went to school and tried to learn a few things. And I thank for that. And so I'm really, really pouring my heart out right here to you guys. But I know this story probably is like, yeah, we heard this before, but this was a tough story at times, but a real, real fun story. We had one parent, we had, what do you call it? The Parents Association. We had one parent, we ran to her house because she made tuna sandwiches, and she made real tuna sandwich, and she cut the edges off the bread. We thought that was so fabulous. So I'm just laying it out because Bedford Stuyvesant gets in the news a lot, but this is the way it was.
So I got to say this. So when I marched with New London Surfers, I started with cymbals too, and I played tune bass. I was first bass, and then I went and played triples. And then I didn't realize I was small until I they put me on the. Remember that we used to carry timpanis, everybody. So yeah. I was on the small timpani, and we had the leg lift on that one. And we had, we had you. So Rachel, you made braces because people talk to this day talk about bad backs carrying marching timpanis and stuff like that. We didn't have braces. We had straps. The snares had straps at that point, and you would see everybody would take the shirt up and they would be tan, but you could see the strap from the sun because we all marched in the sun for hours. So back then, hours was 8 to 12 hours in the hot sun. So when I think of a memory, we hold the record for 38 lunch stops at McDonald's. So if you see a drum corps coming to McDonald's with 100 and something members, and then you see another drum corps coming, Phantom Regiment, the people were not prepared for this. Kids running into McDonald's because we were all hungry. And you talk about not eating and not showering for days. Those are some of the best memories we ever had. Marching in a cornfield. I remember Akron, Ohio, marching in a cornfield in Akron, Ohio. And then one of our cymbal players, his name was Cleve. He was like 6'9". He just couldn't hit the note. And my uncle, he was they called him Crank. He was the center snare. And he got tired. He goes, "You missed that mark one more time, I'm gonna come and hit you in your chest." And Cleve missed it. And my uncle went back and went wham, hit him in his solar plex. He never made a mistake ever again. But it was one of the best things because you learned how to perfect things. But when you're on tour, I don't know if you guys remember, well, I'm sure you do remember, we would say when people were acting up in winter camp, we said, just wait till tour comes. We're going to get you on tour. And when they said get you on tour, that means all those people who screwed up and made fun of you and you got your asses kicked. But it was fun because you learned the craft. You learned how to perfect it. And you, as Gerald was saying, you learned to march in pride. And it was one of those things where people did follow you. We were the Pied Pipers, and they followed us. And like, we wanted to do that. And that was fun. Donnie, talk about your experience of when you first learned what instrument you were going to play, what that was like for you.
Okay, we started off with, believe it or not, G bugle that had just one valve. After that, we grew up to a valve and rotary. And we were taught, like I said, they showed us the fingering and what have you. And we kept with the G bugle. We never like had to the point where they played trumpets and what have you. But we did have the 3-valve G bugle. And the thing about that is most of the people who went through that corps could tell you that if it wasn't for Drum and Bugle Corps, Wynn Center Toppers in particular, but there were a lot of other Drum and Bugle Corps in Brooklyn. You know, they had the Carter Cadets, was a pretty good one. They also had in Manhattan the Innocent Warriors. There were quite a few, and they would tell you that had they not had that drum corps experience, there's no telling which way their life would have gone. Some of them could have been drugs, jail, or what have you. It was such a thing that kept you close. I mean, you didn't have to, no one didn't tell you you had to go to rehearsal. You looked forward to going to rehearsal, even if it was every day, you know. And with the instructors that we had, you know, it was a beautiful thing. You know, and
I would like to add, Donnie, we need Mr. Austin and Mr. Tucker to punch us in the head. They, you know, they just looked at us. And that's something in some homes when a granny or auntie or uncle looks at you with the look, you know you got to do something. All Mr. Austin had to do was look, and Mr. Tucker said, look, turned around, and we knew they meant business. They didn't have to yell and scream or punch anybody.
Yeah, I posted a couple of audios of the Wynn Center Toppers on YouTube, and there's also one video. Unfortunately, it's the only video that we have up there. That video is of the Wynn Center Toppers Alumni Corps, and it was from 1995. We started the Alumni Corps in 1991, and what we did that was to for the Brooklyn, I had mentioned to you earlier, the Brooklyn Day Parade, and we wanted to revitalize that parade. So we got members together because they asked me to come do it in 91, and there's no way. The day that we started the first rehearsal, I quit 4 times. I said, I can't do this. I can't do that. I cannot play this one. But believe it or not, Mr. Austin was still around, and we hung in there. And actually, we have a brass ensemble right now that we're still playing with people from Virginia, Pennsylvania, me from North Carolina. We have a person in Florida, and a couple of times a year we'll get together. Now we do rehearse like at home, so we'll have the parts together, but at least once a year we get together and we perform. And you know, it's still a beautiful thing. You know, it's in our blood.
And talking about a beautiful thing, hey Mickey, talk about what you're doing now, what you've created.
Well, man, kind of going back to what you were talking about when you were carrying that timpani around and dragging those big drums when you were little. We are at BAC Musical Instruments in Kansas City thinking about health and wellness for these kids that are out there carrying these drums. They are still rehearsing long hours, not anything like we did. It's against the law to do things like we did back in the day.
That's true.
You can't rehearse those kind of hours. You can't in sun like that anymore. But we are trying to help them with lighter instruments. And from a percussion standpoint, we are looking at what they're playing on. About 20 years ago, the drum heads changed, okay? Manufacturers tried to make drum heads last longer. And that was a great thing from the affordability for bands and for musicians and all those things. But what that did is they didn't think about what it was going to do to the drum, number one, and what it was going to do to the musician. Okay. And what it did to the musician is it gave them a harder surface to play on because those heads were bulletproof vests. Literally, they were made them out of Kevlar. Okay. So Brian and I, we were drumming about that time when they changed those heads, and we actually had to go from playing on a plastic surface to a surface that was like a bulletproof vest. And it was like playing on a table. Okay. Well, when you do that for a certain amount of time, and you have no give in the drum, it develops carpal tunnel and tendonitis and all kind of problems in your hands and in your arms.
I didn't know that. I never thought about that.
Yeah, man, that's exactly what it was. And the manufacturers only thought about the fact that they were stopping the drums from caving in, because that was the purpose that they were going for, right? Those heads were making the drums cave in because the heads were stronger than the wood. Well, they put a rim on top of the wood, stopped the wood from caving in. They were done. They stopped thinking, but they didn't think about the changing of the sound. They didn't think about what it was doing to the player. Okay, so for the next 20 years, they just left it alone. They developed a whole generation of snare drummers not knowing that they were playing on something that was incorrect feeling and incorrect sounding. Okay, so for a teacher and a musician like me, I sat there and goes, man, there's got to be something that we can do to change that. It's got to be something that we can do to fix that. It's got to be something that we can do to make that feel better and to make that go back to what I played on and what you played on. Okay, so what I did and what my partner Al Murray did, who really was the brain trust of all of this, of me having to say, over the years, dude, isn't there something we can do about this? Isn't there something you can do about that? It's got to be something. And he has developed many drums over the years. And I was the guy that was like, hey, that's cool, but and then, he get mad at me, but come up with the next thing. So the next thing was this thing that we have out of 825 and out of BAC, which is this drum here. I don't know if you can see it. I don't know if I can bring it down where you can see it. But
it's a wooden drum, isn't it?
It has a wooden hoop on the top. Okay. And every other drum has a metal bearing hoop on the top. And what that metal bearing hoop does is it makes it feel like a tabletop on the top, okay? And it doesn't give you any give. This now gives you give, and we made it able to come in and out of the drum. So if it ever has a problem, we just send you another one of these instead of having to buy a whole drum like you did back in the day.
And Mickey, who created them? Who created them?
They're 825 BAC is where you can buy them. And myself and Alan Murray created this drum.
All right, let's take a look at these photos real quick. And the Horn Doctor, we're going to you next. See, I missed this. These were great things about parades. You look forward to seeing Corps march.
Yeah, that's Wynn Center Toppers color guard.
Wynn Center Toppers, yes, color guard.
You could just tell they were just dedicated.
That's another Wynn Center Toppers.
That's a look of hard work and pride.
Yep.
That's also Wynn Center. That's us again.
Look at that, those stick levels on those snares and tenors. Mm-hmm. I miss seeing photos like that. You could just tell the dedication and the hard work.
Oh yeah, I still teach marching, and that's someone gave them a lot of love. You could see it in everything they're doing.
Yeah, now that's the Toppers Alumni Corps in Seaside Heights, New Jersey. There in 1995.
Hey, Mike, talk about what you did and why you're repairing and why that's important. Because, Corps went from contras to tubas. I still call them contras, even though they're the tubas. Why did people make the changes? Because they stopped finding people to fix the instruments, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was, again, going back to my experience, I was part of the drum corps when all of the horns, with the exception of the contras with Boston when I first started, were 3 valves. With the contras, though, were the old 2-valve Kings that they were still playing. And I was there when they had made the rule change that allowed you to have, they had all the rule changes. First, it was a 1 piston, then it was the piston rotor, then it was the slide, all the evolution into the 3 valves. But I was there when they said, hey, you can have any amount of valves. They just still have to be in the key of G. So I remember the first day we got the horns that were delivered were delayed. We got 1 contra that was 4-valve. The rest of the section were all 2 valves. And they gave it to the biggest, baddest Boston Crusader contra player. He had a sleeve of years he marched. They got it to us during warm-up for one of our shows in Beverly, Massachusetts. Everyone was excited. He's rocking and rolling it. So then we start to line up to go to the field. And I remember we wrapped around, and all of a sudden I see this. He was so pissed off. The bell was all fukackled. It was all crushed because he brought the horn down with a lot of intensity and dropped it. So he just gotten it within like the last half hour, brand new, like out of the plastic. And he completely crushed the bell. And I thought, man, that's awful. We were walking around. So that was the planting of the seed for me to think, man, like, how is that going to get fixed? And so I ended up going to school for band instrument repair. There's only 3 schools in the United States, or the world for that matter, that I'm aware of, that teach band instrument repair. So I was still a member of the Boston Crusaders when the corps director asked me, hey, I heard that you're going to school to learn how to fix instruments. And I said, yeah. And he said, well, the truck driver dropped a contra off the equipment bay. What would you need to fix it? So I'm in school in Red Wing, Minnesota. So it's Minnesota State College, Southeast Technical. It's the foremost program in the world. It's the largest. They've got a really great program there. I flew in to Boston for a camp. I told them, get me a vise. I'll bring some other tools, which I brought on the plane, by the way. I did this multiple occasions. We're talking like this was around 99, 2000. And I had to carry on my plane all these screwdrivers, a little torch, all sorts of tools. You can't do that anymore. But I remember rolling out the contra bell at that camp and looking at it. The horn line is in rehearsal, and I'm sitting there. I pulled this horn apart. I rolled out the bell, and I'm like, oh, my God, this looks awesome. Corps director walks by, stops, sees the work, and says, oh, man, I'll tell you what. If you fix our horns this summer, I'll cover your tour fee. And I, at the time, was 20. And I'm like, oh, my God, this is huge. So for the last 2 years.
Because how much was the tour fee, Mike?
Oh, man, it must have been at least $1,500 back then, at least $1,500. I mean, which was a lot at the time, right? So I didn't know how that was going to happen. But, yeah, he said, I'll cover your tour fee. So that summer, I repaired horns for the Boston Crusaders. And then my age out year, I repaired horns for the Boston Crusaders. And that was some of the girls in the color guard would say, it's the horn doctor. So the horn doctor was kind of my thing that I did. And then I took that on the road. So I got a job in Boston making custom trombones after I graduated from that school. An incredible sounding opportunity. I said, well, I'm in this Boston Crusaders drum corps, and there happens to be a little company that makes trombones. So I took an interview when I was at a camp. The guy offered me a job, and I was like, that's great, but could I'm going to march drum corps this summer. Could I start, when I get back? So that's literally what. So then I aged out. I had been making custom trombones for a year, and I aged out as the horn doctor, and I did all sorts of custom modifications to my own personal mellophone, which was pretty funny. But that's kind of what got me into this role. And then from 06 to 16, so one of my teachers was J.D. Shaw. Several of us have a connection with J.D. He marched Skyriders and Phantom Regiment. And J.D. told Con Summer, he said, I don't want anybody else fixing my horns but this guy, because I was in his horn line, and he knew that I went to school and I did all that. So that turned into the horn doctor. I went on tour for 10 years, traveled all over the country with a mobile repair shop. At one point, I had an ambulance. And that naturally progressed into these companies. I was helping provide guidance from the field And I had the unique skill set of not only was I a repair guy that was passionate about this activity, and I wanted to do everything I could to make sure the kids had horns that worked properly, because I got it. I'm like, this is me. I want to make sure their horns work properly. So I was providing consulting for all the companies, saying, hey, look, this is wrong. This is wrong. Here's a trend. You need to reinforce it here or there. And then I was doing all the warranty repairs and fixing instruments. So it was an incredible experience, and naturally, organically, we started making custom horns here in Kansas City under the BAC brand that Ish and Mickey work for, and they're incredible. These are the sales guys I get to work with that help to basically take the energy and excitement of what we're doing to make a positive impact on music education. And Mickey will tell you he's not a sales guy; he's a truth teller. We're all passionate about this. We all marched drum corps. We know what it takes. If you roll it into a show, you know, you can't, or a rehearsal, you don't want to interrupt the drum corps during ensemble. Oh, you don't want to do that. But, you know, we have the ability to know that and have the insight on this activity that's made it real fun. And you know, hearing Gerald talk about his experience, this is something Mickey and I have both been talking about for a long time. He's actually working right now, and I don't know if we could say it, but we're going to say it. We're developing some stuff for younger kids, Mickey on the percussion side, and we're looking at that. Kansas City Public Schools has not had a marching band in I don't even know how long. And right now they have the conversation of starting up a marching band for the city. And we work with the New Orleans group down in New Orleans. It's called Roots of Music. They work with little kids. They got a marching band. It's an incredible program. We've been working with them since its inception after Hurricane Katrina. We just outfitted that program, and now we're talking about starting a citywide marching band here in Kansas City. So I hear Dr. Shephard talk about his experience and how his life was changed, and it got me a little bit misty-eyed because I'm like, oh my God, like we're about to do this for some kids here in Kansas City that don't have access to all the things that the kids in the suburbs have. And we're going to make that happen. And I'm so proud to be part of that and to have people like Ish and Mickey that believe in that makes it happen.
Hey, Mike, we got a couple minutes left. Give your social media links so people can reach out and find you, because there's so many people who need their instruments fixed.
Yeah, definitely. So hit us up. So we got on all the social medias, we got hashtag BAC Music or cool as BAC. We handcraft custom trombones and trumpets right here in Kansas City's historic jazz district. I'm across the street right now from 12th Street and Vine, which is referenced. So I'm the Horn Doctor. People can find me on the Horn Doctor. We're on TikTok with BAC Music. We're on Facebook, Instagram. Our website, scrolling at the bottom there, you'll see it, bacmusic.com. Reach out to Ishmael is in California, so he's helping work like the west side of the country. Mickey is right now in Texas, and he's helping with that. But we're the kind of company that'll pick up the phone, will return your phone call, will return an email, and there's not a lot of nonsense involved. We want to help you out. So if you're interested and you need new horns or drums, reach out. We want to help you.
Mickey, social media links real quick.
No social media, but you can get my email. It's MICKEY, just like the mouse. You got to know that. At bacmusic.com. Straight to my email.
Ish, tell them who you are real quick. We got about 90 seconds. Go ahead.
Okay, real quick. I want to culminate everything. I have tears in my eyes from all the stories because I lived them too. But to see everybody has them, it's awesome. But we've also had stories and dreams. This is Mickey's dream. And I'm in a loud place, but I'm going to show you true music. Wearing the shirt, 8 to 5. It's a new brand. And here's the drum. It just got to California. It's actually got the drum head on it. The beautiful part about this drum, it's got a wooden sound, a real deep, real sound. So you drummers, Gerald, Donnie, and Lance, from the center, all around, you're going to hear the drum sound. It doesn't have that metal pingy sound with all the new Kevlar. This is a real drum made by a person with a passion and love for what we do. Mickey, your dream is real.
All right, Donnie, real quick, give the social media links how people can buy the book and reach out real quick.
Okay, you just go to Amazon.com and just type in Wynn Center Toppers, and the book will come up.
Rachel Roberts, social media links.
Rachel Roberts Recipes, also Facebook on Rachel Ann Roberts. Mickey, where are you in Texas?
I'm in Dallas.
I'm in Houston. All right.
All right.
I'm in Weatherford, right west of you, Mickey.
Hey, Weatherford, I know where you're at.
All right.
Brian, I'm gonna send you the link to the book, and you can pass that on. Okay, Brian?
Absolutely. And I will have everybody back one way or another because, time goes quick. So I just wanted everybody to get to know each other, that past, because without that past, there's no future, as we all know. And so, this is the fun part about it. Man, we're out of time. This one's quick.
I really enjoyed it. This was really, really great.
Hey, I got to say this. Thank you for everybody coming. This is only the first one. We're going to do another one. I think the last week of November with Robbie Robertson, who's been on his family founded the Crossmen. So when they did the 50th anniversary of the Crossmen, he's going to be on with probably the woman snare drummer who kicks ass. She's really good.
Robbie's a very good friend of mine, man.
He's going to be on. So I kind of want to scoop certain people back on and just keep it going. I got to say this, we're out of time. So thank you, everybody. And I always say this, have a good night tonight, a better day tomorrow. You see someone without a smile, please give them one of yours because the world needs it. I'm Brian Sebastian. This is Movie Reviews and More, and we will see you next week.
Got 120 million viewers, though.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you so much.